Hey KU fans, thanks for checking out another episode of KU Sports Extra with Tom Keegan. I'm Matt Tate at Allen Fieldhouse, and we're sitting down because that's all you can really do after a game like that. 84-80 Kansas over West Virginia in overtime. I'm exhausted and I didn't do a darn thing.
Down 14 with 2:58 remaining, and they won. This was unbelievable. It was more improbable than the national title comeback.
Self mentioned that actually, not in exactly those words, but he did reference down 9 with 2 minutes to go against Memphis in 08, and they won. But he pointed out, I thought it was great that he pointed this out. In that game, it seemed like everything went right for Kansas from that point on. In this game, even in that last 2:58, there were things that didn't go right, but Kansas found a way. It's sort of the motto of this team: find a way. They've done it all
great
year.
At winning, and when you play as hard as these guys do, and I love the moment when Self pointed out that nobody plays harder than these guys.
Very impassioned.
Yeah, and it's great to hear him say that because he's a harsh critic, and he really, really appreciates this team and the effort they give. And that's what it's about, man. These guys are really quick, but they have played so many minutes with so little depth that they can't practice a ton, and they certainly haven't practiced full court pressure,
Right.
because that'll wear you out. And Self said it'd been about a month since they practiced full court pressure. And they played it like they do it every game.
Nathan Adrian said, we press ourselves every day.
Right, they work on that in practice every day. But it's weird, they say that, you hear announcers say this all the time, and I'm not sure why it is, but teams that press don't like to be pressed.
Yeah.
But I'm with Adrian, you would think.
Right.
Hey,
We should handle it.
Yeah.
And they certainly didn't. Although Self pointed out too, I thought he said this perfectly too. Guys just made plays. There was no perfect press. It wasn't X's and O's. It wasn't
really
coaching.
Quick, determined, hard-driving athletes making plays.
No doubt, and not even just the guards. Landon Lucas had a couple of huge steals. He was so big on the inbounds pass that it caused problems for Adrian, who was inbounding the ball a lot. We talk about this all the time, the best games ever in here, and this doesn't quite fit into that category with Missouri and with Oklahoma, but I think it has to fit in best comebacks ever in here. Self said he thought so, and I don't think
the
you've seen
Missouri
one better,
comeback
right?
was no way. Missouri comeback was over a much longer time, and the national title comeback was unbelievable. But this one, just for sheer comeback, was the most amazing. Jackson, Mason, and Graham late in the game had one field goal apiece.
Right.
And you're talking about Graham ends up with 18 points, 14 of them coming in the last 156 plus OT.
Right.
Mason ends up with 24 points, and Jackson gets 14 and 11, his fifth double-double in 6 games.
Yeah, if you look at the stat sheet, it's, those guys had a great night again. Of course they won. They didn't at all. They had a great 6 minutes or something like that.
They had a great night in 6 minutes.
There you go.
It was
There you go.
unbelievable. And Carlton Bragg played 18 minutes, fouled out, scoreless, 1 rebound. But enough on Carlton Bragg.
Enough about him. Let me do my Bob Huggins, and you can tell me what I'm doing.
He's looking at his teams. That his team held Kansas to 34%.
34% and they win, is what he said, as he shook his head. Remarkable, just truly remarkable. A comeback for the ages on the night they set the Guinness World Record for loudest indoor arena. Big deal. I'm glad something upstaged that, because this was about the game tonight. It had nothing to do with the record, although the crowd was fantastic, and that was what Self talked about. He could care less about the record. He even said that. But he did give a nod to the fans, who absolutely played their part in that comeback.
Well, what he said was the fans who stayed.
Who stayed, yeah.
I guess Dick Vitale, obviously we don't watch the broadcast, but Dick Vitale was going nuts that some people headed for the exits.
Rightfully so. It was a little premature, even though things didn't look like they were going well. For a Kansas fan base that prides themselves on not doing that, for a Kansas fan base that was dogging Kentucky's fans for leaving that game early, it's hard to see people walking out of here. But it's also hard to call
small amount.
Right, one bad apple doesn't spoil the whole bunch. That's not fair. And those that did stay were very loud, very incredible in overtime. It was
Why wouldn't you be?
a wonderful atmosphere all the way around. Kansas is that close to being just one game up on Baylor and West Virginia with 5 to go. Now they're up 2 on Baylor, and West Virginia's out of it. This thing is all but over.
Yeah, although Baylor could get back in it if they win Saturday. Kansas won't be spending a lot of time on the floor this week, I don't think.
No.
Not going real hard anyway. They'll be putting up some shots and some free throws. Lynn Lucas, strangely,
2 of 7.
2 of 7. And what would you guess, just without looking it up, his free throw percentage is this year?
Wow. I did look it up the other day, I think, and it was in the low 60s.
Yeah, so it's 591 now.
Yeah.
For him,
I would have guessed way higher.
percentage.
When I looked that up, I expected it to be 72, something like that.
He normally is better than that, but that means he's got a lot of makes coming. But his offensive rebounds were huge. Like, he's right there at the rim.
Yeah. Another, 13 boards. Big game for him, for sure. Bob Huggins talked about his team getting a couple days off, too. I think they need it. I think Kansas needs it, certainly. Frank Mason played, 43 minutes? Sick. Still sick. He said he's feeling better, but he sounded congested. He's definitely been sick. And for him to do that, and 16 of 18 at the line when they had to have every last one.
Yep. And how about this coming on February 13th for Devontae Graham, the 1-year anniversary of outplaying Buddy Hield and scoring 27 points.
Wow. Any final thoughts other than that?
Overtime,
baby. Thanks for checking out this episode of KU Sports Extra. We'll talk to you guys real soon.